Welcome, everybody. My name is Jim Hassman. I'm the President and Chief Revenue Officer of Blues. Some of you may have heard of us. Some of you that are attending may not. I'll give you a little bit of background on who Blues is as a company and what we do. But the real purpose of why you probably signed up to join us today to listen to this discussion is regarding the topic here, unlocking the power of data transforming the auto retail space with Tekion and Blues. I'm your host. Jamie Fox from Tekion is our guest today. And this is really all about Jamie and Tekion and what they've built using Blues, more so than a long-winded webinar about Blues itself. So appreciate all of you taking time out of your schedule today to join us. Hopefully the topic is interesting and relevant to you. Thank you to whoever created the background music. That's always fun to join these and kind of see what's going to happen. I think the theme is some type of blues music in the background, but when you put on a good event, one thing I've learned is pick good music, feed and hydrate people, which I can't do those two things for you today, but hopefully you enjoyed the music. All right, without further ado, I will give you just a bit of background on Blues, and then we'll get into the discussion. Blues was founded in 2018 by a tech legend that some of you may have heard of named Ray Ozzie. If you haven't heard of Ray, go look up his Wikipedia page. The man needs no introduction, but a few of highlights of Ray and his background is he's the person who created Lotus Notes. If any of you ever used Lotus Notes, he was the CEO and founder developer of Lotus Notes. He created the initial version of what is now called blockchain. And he also took over as chief software architect for Bill Gates at Microsoft in 2006 and built Microsoft Azure and some other things. So he's a very accomplished tech legend. He started 7 companies. This is his latest venture. And he's a really amazing individual to work with. The product that we have was built by Ray. All the innovation that happens usually happens from Ray's desk first. You can think of him as Tony Stark. He's just constantly innovating. Blues is a company that helps other product companies connect their products to the cloud. That's the easiest way to think of it. Think of Blues as a company that connects the unconnected. And the way we do that is we have a solution that is comprised of a hardware product that we call the Note Card. Product companies put the Note Card inside of their products, usually on a printed circuit board, and connect their sensors. And the purpose of the Note Card is to take data from these sensors and send it to the cloud. That can be done through cellular. We have a cellular option. It can be done through Wi-Fi. It can be done through LoRaWAN. It can be done also through satellite. So we cover 4 major radios. The cool thing about it is that the API from the product itself to the cloud doesn't change regardless of what radio you choose to use from Blues. So it's a very, very, very developer-friendly solution that helps companies that are trying to connect the things that they sell downstream to their markets, their distributors, their customers. Makes it very easy to develop connected solutions, and that's why we exist. Some people call us, we're the world's simplest data pump, and we love that. We're used in all kinds of products. You're going to see how Tekion uses Blues today, but we span most industries in a variety of products and use cases, which I won't get into today. But thank you all for joining. And with that, I'll turn the time over to Jamie. He can give you a little bit of background on him and what Tekion is doing. And then I have a bunch of questions for you, Jamie. So we'll go.
Perfect. My name is Jamie Fox. I'm the Senior Director of Professional Services at Tekion. I oversee our technology organization, so top to bottom, from things like hardware design all the way to field services implementation, our CRM product, and then our fintech solutions across all of our customer base. I started at Tesla as an intern in the IT department and have basically just grown from there. Now, Tekion in itself, for those of you that don't know, is an automotive software platform. And what that means is we service dealerships. So the automotive software landscape is tremendous. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of players in the market. But our core product, Automotive Retail Cloud, is a dealership management software platform where it started. Now it encompasses the entire B2B software solution for an automotive dealership. So when you think about that, that's dealership management system, CRM, payroll, payments, everything that encompasses that, including things like IoT. We offer it as a one-stop shop for our customers, which are dealerships. The company was founded in 2016 as a service lane product, which basically means when you go in to get your vehicle serviced, they would use our platform and we would write information into other competitive DMSs. We then quickly realized that our experience was better than anything out there. So the dealerships really had a disjointed experience. And we then decided to embark on the journey a few years later to build our own full suite offering and launch that in late 2019. So we're about 4.5 years into that product being live on the market. And yeah, things are going very well. Adoption is very good. We're certified with every single manufacturer in the United States or North America for the most part, and continue to grow tremendously in popularity and scale in the market.
Awesome. One of the first questions I want to ask you, and this is a personal question, is when did you first start getting involved with IoT products?
You know, really early on, I had exposure to what we would call IoT, and a lot of that is connected vehicle, right? If you think about what Tesla is doing today, every single vehicle is sending millions of telemetry data points every single second, essentially, which is how they're getting all their autopilot data, all their service diagnostic and preventative maintenance data. And so I helped build a lot of the back-end infrastructure in the form of service centers, data centers, stores, you name it, that helped communicate that data back, when Tesla was completely on-prem. So I started getting some exposure there, but the core of that work really came at Tekion when we started building our own products to complement our software solutions.
Got it. One of the questions, you and I have talked about this, but it might be interesting for the audience here, but how did you come across Blues and what led you to Blues? I mean, Blues isn't the only way somebody can connect products to the cloud, but
Yeah.
What was interesting about us to you?
So, we are very prideful in what we like to do. We like to build things ourselves. We built our software platform from the ground up, literally from scratch. And we wanted to build our tools from scratch. And I can't tell you how many conversations we went through where we said, well, let's just build the connectivity pieces ourselves. Let's figure it out and just, build it from the ground up. We quickly realized that at that stage as a startup and, what we were trying to accomplish, that was a buy decision, not a build decision. And so we started looking in the market, really trying to understand what was available. And ultimately, Blues was the best solution for us as far as just ease of use and what we needed and scalability. So yeah, we quickly decided that this was the way we wanted to go.
Yeah, it's interesting watching companies like yours utilize our products because once it's in and it's working, nobody really asks about the connectivity anymore.
No, that's correct.
If the data are making it to where they're supposed to go and the business model works, it's like people kind of forget that we're there, which is fine by us.
Yeah.
It's trademark of good product, I think. But
Yeah.
you mentioned your Automotive Retail Cloud. Could you go into a little more detail for those that are on with us about what is that? And what do your end customers find valuable about it?
Yeah, so for a customer for anyone on the call to kind of relate, if you go into an automotive dealership and you're getting your car serviced, you're buying a car, you're going to the parts department, you're paying for something, or if you're working in the dealership, you're getting, you're doing your accounting work or getting paid, that is all powered by Automotive Retail Cloud. So there are customer-facing elements like online consumer portals where you're signing electronically, paying electronically, but the majority of that, the workhorse of ARC, as we like to call it, is internal dealership operations. So the big thing for a customer is they don't need to know what's running in the back end. And Tekion handles all of that for them so that they get appropriate service, appropriate sales numbers, all of that stuff, the calculations, forms. I could go on and on, but the complications in the automotive space for all of those things, from the regulatory compliance elements all the way down to basic operations like telling you how much something is, or how much your service is, that's all powered by Automotive Retail Cloud. Big value driver for us is we're the first cloud native DMS on the market. That was our big pitch when we first entered the market. The market is very old world. You know, two of our major competitors started as paper companies, if you can believe it. You know, back when dealerships were the cornerstone building in every town, which is why their real estate is so good. They were doing everything on paper. And then these companies quickly realized we needed to digitize a little bit. We needed to get into the market of you know, having a software platform. But they've built essentially software that is not scalable. And what I mean by that is they can come out with a new UI, they can come out with new features, but ultimately the underlying technology of that platform remains relatively the same. To put it in perspective, there are dealerships that have a full server rack of servers that operate their DMS to the point that you could turn it off and not have access to operate your dealership on a daily basis. And so for us, from a value perspective, price is one. Of course, we're not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive. Reliability and the integration landscape. I mean, if we talk about the way that we've approached integrations, we integrate directly with manufacturers, and then, you know, we don't pass those costs on to customers. So there's a lot of value in having, you know, cloud native architecture that allows you to scale infinitely, have that 4 nines, 5 nines uptime to ensure dealership operations, but also just speed. I mean, our archaic systems are slower. Ours is built cloud first and is accessible anywhere. You don't have to be inside your dealership to do your work. And that really became a thing like during COVID, for example, because you could have a finance and insurance manager selling a car from their home instead of having to go in and sit at their desk in order to access all the tools they needed to do their job. And it let those essential businesses, which dealerships were, continue to operate no matter what the situation was.
So so Blues is a very small piece of this overall ARC solution. You know, what is the piece that you're using Blues for?
Yeah.
And what does it do? Like, what do you get out?
Well, lucky for you, I have one at my desk and so this is our tool that has Blues in it. This is an onboard diagnostic scanning tool. So Blues, of course, you're not anywhere listed here, but you're inside here, you're powering the connectivity for it. It plugs into the OBD2 port on a vehicle. And what it does is it pulls diagnostic codes directly from the ECU on the car. And what that does in conjunction with Automotive Retail Cloud is it pushes those diagnostic codes directly to an open repair order. So if you can think about the workflow, when you come in for service, your service consultant or service advisor will take this tool and scan your vehicle. And what that will do is a couple of things. For certain OEMs, we're required to scan it in order to be paid on warranty. So connectivity is critical for this tool itself. But it also pairs those diagnostic codes with the ability to leverage machine learning, artificial intelligence, all the buzzwords, to then upsell that customer on additional services that they may not have been coming in for based on how their vehicle is performing currently. So this connects directly to Automotive Retail Cloud, pushes those diagnostic codes directly into the repair order associated with the VIN number on the car, and then gives the service advisor a more complete, holistic informational view. Everything from mileage, engine codes, check engine light status, all of the things that they need to make informed recommendations to the customer to keep their car in top shape.
Great. Well, for all of you that are out there wondering what is the Blues piece that's inside, it looks kind of like this. This is got a modem on it and a whole bunch of other stuff.
It's right about here.
Right
somewhere
in there.
in there.
A little bit of a shameless plug here, but take your moment when you can. These note cards are fairly cost effective. They range between $49 to 69, 79 bucks, depending on what you're getting with it. Typically, it's the modem selection that is the biggest cost driver of that price moving. But what's really cool about the business model here is that when customers like Tekion buy these and put these into their products, it comes with 10 years of cellular service in that cost. Or 500 megabytes. You may run out of 500 before the 10 years is over, but you can just add 500 more for $10. So it's a very cost effective product to put inside of something and not have to have a contract with a carrier or worry about, is the carrier going to have coverage in this location? Like, you just put it in, it works in like 156 countries around the world.
Yeah.
So that's what's inside. When he said it's inside, that
Yes, it is. It is sitting in there and empowering the back end for us.
what's the future roadmap look like for you guys with what
Yeah.
you've done so far and where it's going?
So this tool was our first device that had a Blues note card in it. We have ambitions for this tool. Onboard diagnostics is weird as you look into the future with certain manufacturers that are just sending it directly from their vehicles to the OEM. So there are certain limitations to the market for this tool itself. Of course, a lot of them still use onboard diagnostics. There's more you can get with the onboard diagnostics port than you can with the data that they're sending directly. So from our perspective, this tool will continue to have Blues in it. It will get simpler, cheaper, faster, all of those things, and of course, cater to that market. But really, when we look to the future, we're thinking about what we do with Blues in terms of note card LoRa, especially with vehicle tracking. So if you think about a dealership ecosystem, they have anywhere from 100 to 1,500 cars on the lot at any time between new, used, service vehicles. Yeah, the no card LoRa, there it is. And ultimately, I have customers today that say, I need a way to know where my cars are. Right now, we have a bucket of keys that we text each other and say, who has this key? And they go out and try to find a vehicle. And what we can do is pair LoRa enabled, note card enabled trackers based on the use case to send location data back to Tekion Arc, so that when you go into the vehicle inventory screen, for example, you can say, okay, this 2024 Chevy Tahoe is at column C, row F. And for us, that's the first step. The second step would be knowing everything that's on the lot at one time for things like floor plan loans, total amount of assets on the lot. And then the last part is dispatch. So if you think about a dealership, a dealer group could have 5, 10, 15 locations. They're cross-selling inventory to each other. They're dispatching and moving cars constantly. Things like tow trucks are coming in and out, servicing customer cars. And so we can create an ecosystem of real-time information that allows dealers to operate as efficiently as possible. I think that's really the next step for us with Blues, is getting our vehicle tracking product into the market and integrating it directly with Arc.
I spent part of my career in AI, and I was working with the largest agricultural, mining, construction, forestry equipment manufacturers on the planet. Most of them some of them are here in the US, but it shocked me that when they shipped product to their dealers, that once the dealer took receipt of it, they lost all visibility about where it was. Which branch did it go to? Did it get moved? Lost forever? Do the salespeople even know where it's at and that it's available for sale? They had no idea.
Yeah.
I think you guys are onto something here that is a problem that still has not been solved.
Yeah, and you think about like the manual work involved, right? If I'm sitting at one dealership, I sell a car that's on another lot, I have to sell it. I then have to go make a manual request, whether it's email, text, phone call to move that car to me. All of that can be automated with these tools, and you can know exactly when something's going to show up. It just creates complete efficiency, right? As far as where cars are moving, and the times that they're going to arrive. And then you get all the metrics around it to understand. Even, we have a customer that has a huge parking garage with 4 floors. It's underground, and our beta vehicle tracking product is there. And the next step for them is understanding, where do I actually park vehicles for maximum efficiency for dispatch? Because a lot of times they're moving 10 to 15 cars to get one car out. And if they had more data, they could be more efficient about where they do this based on when things are getting repaired, when they're getting picked up, and ultimately save a ton of time.
Makes a lot of sense. When you see people, well, maybe before I get to this question, are there any really cool success stories that you guys have had with your solution? Maybe one or two stories that would kind of bring all this to life for us.
Yeah, I think a bigger piece is not necessarily like a single customer solution, but when we launched this product, um, we had thousands of orders for it, essentially, because it became a mandate for one of our OEM partners that all of those brands had to scan vehicles starting a certain date, or they would not be paid on warranty. And for us, the biggest success story of it, and Blues helped us with this, is the speed brought to the market gave us the ability to meet that deadline, and deliver all those tools to customers to keep their operations going. When we're talking about launching a product, a lot of times you're launching a product and then trying to sell it. We had pre-sold this product and had a deadline to work with. And so I think the big success story is, had we not done something with Blues, it's not a shameless plug, it's the reality, is that we probably would have had a really big challenge meeting that deadline for testing, validation, and then ultimately launch. I mean, we shipped out 6, 7, 800 of these devices in a matter of a week, to get them in the hands of customers all across the United States in order to meet this warranty submission deadline. So that's a huge success for us as a customer, but ultimately it protrudes out to the dealerships that count on us for tools like this.
You and I ran into each other in January at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. And what was interesting to me about this year was, for those of you that didn't go and didn't stop by our booth, we had over 20 customer products in our booth. Instead of a bunch of salespeople, we had 20 customers there telling their story. But I think if you would talk to any of them, you'd only need to talk to probably 2 to pick up the pattern here. The pattern is speed and efficiency.
Mhm.
Every one of them were in this state of, let's build it ourselves, build it ourselves, build it ourselves. And it gets to a point where it's like, this kind of doesn't make sense anymore for us. It does for some. I'm not saying we're the end all be all for everybody, but for the companies that do use us, there's this point of frustration and time loss and cost where they're like, there's got to be something faster. And they would all tell you within weeks they had their product working on Blues. And it was like, okay, now let's go to market. So I think it's good. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is a very repeated pattern in all of the customers that we work with.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, were you going to say something?
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You've been doing this a while. You worked for some very large scale operations, and that gives people a whole different perspective of the world than working constantly in small startups. But just from your experience and kind of seeing this happen multiple times of people building connected products, what are some of the main pitfalls or mistakes that you've seen? I've seen a bunch as well because of where I sit, but what have you seen?
So, I think even like at Tekion, right, we've made this mistake in the past. I think when we look at everyone gets like bright-eyed about what the solution could do, and I think they tend to miss things along the way that ultimately, you have to step back, step back and fix. I think the biggest pitfall is you're designing a solution, for maybe a specific use case, but you have to think about, what else you can do to then future-proof that product. Like if you think about the kings of this, the champions of this is Apple, right? Like putting an EMV chip in an iPhone, never telling anyone, but thinking that eventually they might want to do something with it, and then being able to enable it on millions of devices immediately. That is a huge example of, in a much larger scale of thinking what is next, right? Like for us, this tool has some specific manufacturer use cases, but ultimately it is enabled to do a lot more in the future. It can work with any manufacturer with some simple data code changes. It can provide, it has an accelerometer that we don't use today that can ultimately be used for anything really. If you're putting it in and shipping a device or shipping a car, it can do a lot more than it does in its current state. And initially we didn't have that, but we put those things in. Obviously, there's additional cost associated, but in the long run, enabling those features for our customers without having to change anything out from a hard product perspective is going to pay us a ton of dividends. I think, like we're a software company by DNA. We do hardware, obviously, but the majority of our work is software driven. It's much easier to pivot when you don't have a hard product out there on the market. So I think the biggest pitfall is not thinking as big as you can when you first scope something or go to build it and take it to market. And even if it's not something you're going to use initially, if there is any chance or a roadmap item for you to use it, you should think about incorporating that because even if you don't end up using it, it's not going to hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, I know Ray went through that when he was designing the note card because he had spent a couple years working on a radiation tracking device for the country of Japan post Fukushima. Everyone was scared, worried. Everyone had relatives that had died or gotten swept away, and everyone was scared to go outside, asking, "Do I need to relocate?" So Ray took years trying to build this radiation monitor that he couldn't go out and physically touch.
Right.
Ray, not allowed to go into the exclusion zone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can put them up, but it needs to run by itself. So it has to be very low power. Has to run and operate a long time. It's got to have its own connectivity. You need to be able to update the firmware remotely. And so these were all things that Ray went through personally before he came out with the note card, which is why some of the features on here, GPS, an accelerometer, temperature sensor that are on this device, it's more than a modem, right? You can think of it as a neo modem if you want, but he put those on there because so many of the use cases that we see, people want to know, where is it? Is it moving? Is it in motion? Did it stop? Is it somewhere it's not supposed to be? What's the temperature? Can I find the location through multiple ways? Kind of pervasive through a lot of these use cases. So,
well, me, I've always asked you like, hey, it's great that you have these two note cards. Like, can I have one with all of it? Like everyone wants all the features to tap into, even if they don't need them immediately. And so I think that's really, really the big thing. And we're thinking about that too with our vehicle tracking product. Like, what are we going to enable first? But we don't want to, from a hardware perspective, have to change things. So how do we future-proof it for any new, even if it's 12, 18 months out, how are we going to enable that feature with the current version 1, version 2 hardware, and the next generation of what we're doing?
You talk about future-proofing, like, this is a question we get a lot is, what happens when, just like it happened with 2G and 3G, the carriers decide to sunset 4G?
Yeah.
And I've got a bunch of these things out there in the wild, like, how is this going to work for me? Do I have to go replace Blues with something else?
Yeah.
The future proofing of Blues really is in the fact that these things are literally like you can just take them and plug them into your board there. So at some point in time when there is a cost-effective 5G or 6G option and 4G is sunset, rest assured that Blues will have the note cards where you can just swap them out and keep going. There'll be no code changes for you at all. You just literally replace the hardware. So all right, what are we on time? We had 15 minutes. So you deal with dealerships. You have this product that is superior to probably what they have if they're using something that was, built ad hoc or whatever. What's the alternative for dealerships without having the ability to have real-time data collection and insights? Do they have alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, they can. There are diagnostic scan tools out there. Of course, we have competitors in the market. I think that historically, if they need to pull engine codes, for example, or diagnostic codes, they're pulling them in a vacuum and then translating that manually almost into what their recommendations are. And so there is always a risk of missing something, updating a code, whatever it is. The alternative is just really old world and old school, right? Not having that direct real-time link where you can be more efficient and have that data populate directly based on that vehicle itself really puts dealers at a disadvantage. It's not that they can't do it that way. We have a lot of dealers that do. But ultimately, the data is not as rich, and it's also not updating with like new vehicles easily, right? So we're getting data feeds from manufacturers as they get updated for 2024 models. We've started to get 2025 data, and so that data is ready to go for the same tool as those new vehicles start to hit the lot, to get out there, and then ultimately come in for service.
Yeah, I know that we've all been trained now and conditioned as consumers with the various apps that we use to want information like right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that you guys solve for dealerships is this point of frustration between the dealership and the customer, where the customer may have more information about what they want to do
Yeah.
than the dealership does.
Yeah.
And you guys can help change that for them, where the buying experience for a customer is as good as any other application they use.
Yeah, I think we've really enabled as a millennial, I think about like when I go into a store, like the first thing I do is someone comes up to me and says, "Do you need something?" And I just say no because I know exactly what I want. I'm not coming in to browse and look at my options. I know what I want, and a lot of our tools have catered to that. You can drop your car off um, after hours in a automated key locker. You can sign your estimate, pay online, and then pick up your car at your leisure without ever stepping foot in the dealership using the solutions we provide with Tekion Arc. And it's really catered to people that don't have time, don't want to, you name the reason, they have access to services that historically you're coming in and being basically put on the spot and sold for things. It's given the consumers a lot more choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, we want to save some time for some questions here. But before we do that, I've asked you a lot of questions. Are there any questions that you want to hit me with?
Yeah, I think my big thing is, we just launched our Tekion AI product, for a lot of like interactive things on our CRM and customer interactions. But for your company, what do you think about AI and IoT working together? And what's the vision for that?
It's actually been a buzzword for a while, or buzz
Of
acronym.
course.
Say, AIoT has been an
Yeah.
acronym people have used. Um, the way I look at AI right now, and I spent, just for those of you listening, I spent 12 years building enterprise AI applications for very large companies. And before I joined Ray on this venture with Blues. And so my perspective of AI is it's still the Wild West. But data is the gold. So if you think of the California gold rush, like everybody's going to find the gold is the data. And I really feel that the correlation and combination of IoT and AI, it's inevitable. It's already happening all around us, and I don't foresee that stopping or slowing down. In fact, people are moving into generative AI and large language models. If you've been following the thread here, there's this new type of model called a large action model, which is super interesting, but it all requires data. And so I think in order for someone to set themselves up to be successful with AI, you need to be generating data that has very valuable insights in it, so that regardless of what modeling technique you might be using, whether it's machine learning or deep learning or LLMs or now LAMs, they all have things they can learn from. And the learning is getting so much easier now where programmers are not required. So I
Yeah.
would say start your data collection now on your product side, because regardless of what modeling approach one might want to take, you're going to have a rich feature set to train your models on. So that's my perspective of it. Is I think that these two things they go hand in glove, and they have for quite a while.
I would agree. I mean, I think like if you obviously are going to have physical items that need to complement the data model. You can't just pull it all from software data. And so you need to have that connectivity between, everything. Like at CES, right? If you look at like John Deere's booth, they have so much data coming out of their tractor equipment and stuff that's in the field. They can't get that without a connectivity piece between the physical hardware and their backend, which ultimately helps them make the decisions that they do. So I completely agree with you. It goes hand in hand.
Yeah, they have spent billions
I know.
developing their connected solution and the JD Link product, which is state of the art. It's very good. It's very good. Most companies do not have the pockets deep enough to
No.
put together teams of mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, firmware engineers, software engineers, cloud engineers, certification people, going and negotiating contracts with AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, whoever, that they do. I mean,
Yeah,
they're a rarity. Tesla would be a rarity. BMW would be a rarity. Most of the mid-market companies that also need the same type of service,
for sure.
they need a product where it kind of cuts out the need to have all of those skill sets in-house forever, especially if you have to change horses. Like, imagine having a team that was completely designed to do cellular, and now you want to come out with
Yeah.
a local offering.
Yeah. We
That's
don't
a
have
whole
that.
skill set.
We have I think we have 8 engineers total
Yeah,
that work on our IoT products globally. And none of them are connectivity engineers or certification engineers, right? We have
yeah.
to, it's even as we grow, I don't think we would ever want to get into that business because of the cost associated with it.
Yeah, it's a moving target. Like,
Yeah.
so. All right. Anything else for me?
Yeah. I talk a lot about dealerships. That's what I live in them. I service them. I solve their problems. But a couple things. One, what makes Blues like ideal for connectivity for automotive and dealerships? And then, are you seeing any other use cases in the automotive industry today that you guys plan or are thinking about entering in?
Yeah. So in terms of, what makes us ideal, number one is I think that the requirement to have a bunch of talent that's either contracted or on your payroll to like try to build this stuff from scratch is a huge value to companies that have very thin margins.
Yeah.
And most of the customers that we serve have very thin margins. They can't afford either to have a very expensive built off the shelf product, nor can they afford to hire armies of engineers to do this. So I think for that reason, it makes us a very interesting solution for the automotive industry. I think there's an area of the automotive industry where we don't fit. Okay. And I think that is in the onboard. I think some of these cars today have like two SIMs on them, two
Yeah.
modems,
Yeah.
where they're doing both the vehicle telemetry, sending that to the cloud, as you mentioned. There's also the audio and the entertainment system that has its onboard stuff. So we don't really play in that area because when you get to these very large data sets that take a huge pipe to pump stuff up and down to keep the firmware updated, Blues was not designed for that. Blues was
Right.
designed for kind of small data sets that need to be sent somewhat infrequently. When I say infrequently, seconds up to several points during the day. But some of our customers are sending data every second or every 2 seconds. A lot of them every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. Blues is very good for that. And the power management of things that need to sit in isolation that aren't connected to wired power or battery power, large battery power, is another good use of Blues. So anything kind of in that space, people tend to look at us and try us out. As it relates to other use cases that we're seeing, some of the components that go into automotive, such as like a battery, the battery manufacturers want the data themselves. They don't want to wait for the automotive manufacturers to sell them data from their device through the onboard system. So in the battery market, we're seeing huge traction with companies that are looking to build connectivity on the battery itself. And think for example, in long haul trucking, agriculture, construction equipment. These vehicles are producing massive amounts of money for the companies running them. And when they break down, massive losses. So the ability for a manufacturer to see that their battery isn't cranking the way it should, or that it's starting to degrade, let's go ahead and get this. It's still under warranty. Let's just get a new battery out, the next stop for this truck, and keep it rolling. So we're seeing a spot there. Another one is in the, this is also in the battery space, but as people are looking at the lithium side of batteries, the supply chain around lithium and who is the end owner of the recycling of the lithium. There's actually there's an entire supply chain dedicated to that has to be tracked. And so that's another area that we're getting hit with. So there are some, but it's pretty much on the energy side of automotive.
That makes sense. Makes total sense.
All right, a few minutes left, maybe some questions from the audience. This first one is for Tekion.
Okay.
How much data are you sending and how often?
So from a data perspective, obviously our data set that we're sending with each scan is relatively small. Generally speaking, we're sending anywhere between 10 and 15,000 packages a day. Now we have triple redundant connectivity on our system, so not all of that isn't necessarily transiting on Blues. We have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and cellular, depending on how the dealership is, because we have to design for any situation, right? You have an enterprise grade dealership, you have a mom and pop dealership that's very small, maybe poor connectivity, which is primarily why we went to Blues, because we have to guarantee that scan sends. So generally speaking, we're sending, within seconds of that vehicle being scanned, and anywhere from 10 to 15,000 unique packages a day from our system, which equates to 10 to 15,000 vehicles, to put it in perspective.
Okay, great. Another one for you, Jamie. Can you speak to the efficiency gains or cost savings dealerships typically achieve when they implement work?
Yeah, I think it really, when we talk about efficiency and cost savings wise, a dealership tends to use between 30 and 40 unique software providers across everything from DMS to digital marketing and payroll and everything. That drops usually in half, at least, when they move to Tekion and centralizes it on a single platform. So when you think about cost, sure, raw cost by combining things and packaging them together on Tekion, but also the human capital cost of context switching, moving data in between both systems, losing data between integrations. There's all huge efficiency gains there. I mean, we have certain processes that could take dealerships 3 to 4 hours each day that end up going down to about 5 to 10 minutes. So the human efficiency is incredible.
Great. One question came into the chat here. You mentioned Tekion's data goes to their cloud. What does the path look like from the note card? Does it go through Blues Cloud? The answer is yes.
Yes.
When data leave the note card, it hits the nearest cell tower and then ends up going into the Blues Note Hub. And that's where the data sit. It's completely off the public internet, that transmission. It goes over TCP and VPN. Or TLS, sorry, and VPN. And then when the data are in Note Hub, Tekion has a route built to their cloud application, and they manage the throttle on what they send, how often they send it, when it's supposed to arrive, that's where they do their processing through ARC. But that's the path for all customers. Goes cellular down to Note Hub to your preferred cloud app.
Yeah, we get it, we ingest it, and then there are manufacturers we send that data to them. We also ingest it on our side. So just like you said, right, we control what that throttle looks like, and then ultimately we redirect it once we receive it from Note Hub.
And you have to use Note Hub if you use Blues. And the reason for that is a security reason more than anything else. because the data are encrypted on the note card and sent over VPN and TLS, they have to be decrypted in NoteHub. And then in NoteHub, you can choose any route path that you want to your end cloud app. But it does, NoteHub does serve a very, that's also, NoteHub also lets you update your firmware over the air. It lets you change environment variables, lets you manage projects and fleets and all kinds of great features. But one last question, and then we'll end. This one's for Blues. It seems like Blues is constantly coming out with new offerings, like it did last month with the Star Note, which is a satellite product. Any exciting announcements coming up? Yes. Okay. April 9th, there's a announcement coming up. And it'll be on PR Wire, be on all the press, but little sneak preview is this is a really good product that has a lot of features in it for a certain cost. Once you get to 100,000 units, 500,000 units, 1,000,000 units, that cost function needs to be optimized. You may not need everything that's on here. So on April 9th, we're going to be announcing a new version of the note cards that are a much reduced price for scale customers. And that's not where it ends. We're going further than that. We don't ever want somebody who's done the hard work to use this to be tempted to design it out because they can do it cheaper through a large engineering team or whatever at large scale. So, you know, we want to continue to put our money where our mouth is, which is we always want to have the most cost-effective and simplest solution for you all to use. And there'll be a lot of details on that. We're calling it Wave 3 of the note card, but the announcement about Wave 3 is coming out on April 9th.
Fantastic. Look forward to it.
Yep.
All right.
Jamie, thank you so much. It was
You're welcome.
And for all of you that stuck around and joined us a few minutes extra, thank you as well. And we appreciate your time and signing up for today, and have a great week.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim, for having me, and Jesse. Thank you both. Bye.